Why did the Buddha know the mushroom was poisonous and yet eat it? The Buddha's teaching. Kunda, take the remaining mushrooms and bury them in a hole. Kunda, I do not see anyone in the heavenly realm, the human realm, the realm of Mara, or the Brahma world, nor anyone among ascetics and Brahmins, among gods and humans, who could digest this mushroom dish, except the Tathagata. Digha Nikaya, Volume 1, page 624, the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. Commentary. Reading this passage, we can see two absurdities. 1. Kunda the smith cooked a mushroom dish that he himself had never eaten before, and yet dared to offer it to the Buddha and the Holy Sangha. That is the first absurdity. Whoever composed this sentence and inserted it into the original scriptures did so in order to slander the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and to strip Buddhist scripture of its true meaning. Such a falsehood cannot be forgiven. A dish never eaten before, yet dared to be given to others, can only be a poisonous dish. 2. Buddhism is the path of wisdom and of transforming cause and effect. Knowing that a poisonous mushroom is poisonous and yet still eating it is not wisdom. Above all, if the Buddha knew it was poisonous and did not allow the bhikkhus to eat it, yet ate it himself, that is the second absurdity. Above all, the Buddha was one who had thoroughly understood the law of cause and effect. The law of cause and effect is a law transformed by wholesome states. The Buddha's life of practice culminated in enlightenment. That means he lived in complete wholesomeness. One who lives in complete wholesomeness has already transformed cause and effect. Therefore, with regard to his body of cause and effect, the Buddha had complete mastery. Whether to live or to die was entirely according to his own will. Thus he taught, Ananda, those who have cultivated the four bases of spiritual power, cultivated them many times, become truly mastered, truly solid, truly enduring, refined, and skillful. If they wish, they can live for a whole eon or the remaining part of an eon. Ananda, the Tathagata has now cultivated the four bases of spiritual power, cultivated them many times, become truly mastered, truly solid, truly enduring, refined, and skillful. Ananda, if the Tathagata wished, he could live for a whole eon or the remaining part of an eon. Digha Nikaya, Volume 1, page 586. The Mahaparinibbana Sutta. The Buddha had such complete mastery over cause and effect, and yet he is said to have eaten poisonous mushrooms, suffered bloody dysentery, and died. That is utterly absurd. To master cause and effect, yet let cause and effect master oneself, is utterly absurd. This passage was inserted by later people who did not understand the transformation of cause and effect and did not understand the power of the four bases of spiritual power in Buddhism. So they inserted this passage to cover up the fact that their own practice could not master birth, aging, sickness, and death. At best, they could only claim to be not blind to cause and effect, not to master cause and effect itself. As we know with certainty, this passage was added by later patriarchs in order to construct the doctrine of fatalistic cause and effect, that is, cause and effect fixed and unchangeable. This was meant to make clear that the methods of Mahayana and Zen Buddhism do not master birth, aging, sickness, and death. It is a kind of mind-suppressing meditation, not a meditation of letting go of defilements. Therefore, the more one practices it, the more one runs after fame, profit, and worldly sensual pleasures. If cause and effect were fatalistic, Buddhism would never proclaim mastery over birth, aging, sickness, and death, and it would never teach people to practice preventing unwholesome states, abandoning unwholesome states, arousing wholesome states, and developing wholesome states. If cause and effect could not be transformed, Buddhism would never have appeared in the world, for what benefit would it have brought to anyone? If cause and effect were fatalistic, Buddhism would never have the methods of the 4 foundations of mindfulness and the 4 holy jhanas. In Buddhism, because of ignorance there arise cause and effect, good and evil, and suffering. Because of ignorance, human beings chase after desire and create countless kinds of suffering. Therefore, Buddhism came into the world to teach people moral discipline and wisdom. Where there is virtue, there is wisdom. Where there is wisdom, there is virtue. Virtue purifies wisdom, and wisdom purifies virtue. These are virtues grounded in moral discipline and right understanding, by which human beings master cause and effect in accordance with the proper methods of the 4 foundations of mindfulness and the 4 holy jhanas. The scholars have slandered the Buddha in this passage, and they have also slandered his disciple Moggallana, an arahant disciple endowed with full supernormal powers, whom the Buddha often praised as foremost in supernormal powers. Yet they say that Moggallana was beaten to death by heretics. There can be no greater slander against the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha than the developed scriptures in which the Brahmin patriarchs skillfully inserted passage after passage into the Buddha's teachings, in order to distort and destroy the true Dhamma of the Buddha. Here we would like to repeat the point in order to show how utterly absurd it is. Kunda the smith had never eaten this mushroom before. If he had eaten it, he would have died, because it was poisonous, just as the Buddha is said to have declared. Kunda, I do not see anyone in the heavenly realm, the human realm, the realm of Mara, or the Brahma world, nor anyone among ascetics and Brahmins, among gods and humans, who could digest this mushroom dish. When a dish had never been eaten by anyone, the Buddha is then made to say, Kunda, serve to me the prepared mushroom dish. As for the other prepared foods, hard and soft, serve them to the bhikkhus. If Kunda heard this instruction, he should at once have become suspicious and asked himself, why does the Buddha not allow the bhikkhus to eat this mushroom dish? Once such a question arose, Kunda should immediately have gone and examined that food again. Yet when he heard the Buddha speak in this way, he supposedly set aside the mushroom dish so that only the Buddha would eat it. That is truly absurd. This is an absurdity that cannot be forgiven. Is that not exactly the case? As for the Buddha, he was one who symbolized wisdom. He established the humanistic ethics of cause and effect, living without causing suffering to oneself, to others, and to both. And yet, he is said to have eaten a poisonous mushroom, causing suffering to himself and causing confusion and agitation among the bhikkhus, especially making Kunda the smith repent and grieve for the rest of his life, if he knew that the Buddha died from partaking of his mushroom offering. Yet the Buddha had complete mastery over birth and death. If he wished to die, he could die at once, and die while the body was not afflicted by even the slightest illness or pain. The Buddha would truly be one who dies not because of illness. That alone would accord with the true meaning of the path of liberation. Therefore, later people inserted passages here that destroy the liberating meaning of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The greatest absurdity is that the Buddha is said to have known the mushroom was poisonous and yet still eaten it, dying in the pain and sickness of bloody dysentery. For someone of the Buddha's age, bloody dysentery would have brought suffering beyond measure. Therefore, it is utterly absurd. Buddhism is the path of mastery over birth and death. So why would the Buddha have to eat a poisonous mushroom, fall ill, and then die, dying in such a painful way? The purpose of Buddhism's appearance in the world is to help human beings live and die in freedom and peace, to die not because of illness. So whoever wrote this passage must bear extremely grave guilt toward Buddhism. Buddhism is fundamentally about not causing suffering to oneself or to others. So why would the Buddha cause suffering to himself and cause suffering to others in that way? Then the humanistic ethics of cause and effect of Buddhism, the ethics of not causing suffering to oneself or to others, would no longer have any meaning for later generations. This is a passage that the patriarchs used to destroy Buddhism. Do you realize this? The second absurdity is this: the Buddha was one of great wisdom and great enlightenment. With such great wisdom and great enlightenment, how could he eat poisonous mushrooms only to fall ill and die? That wisdom would no longer be wisdom. It would be ignorance. Is that not so? You say that this was karmic cause and effect from one of the Buddha's former lives, and that in this life the Buddha had to repay it. Do not say that. To speak that way is to show that you do not understand Buddhism. Buddhism is the path of transforming cause and effect, as already explained above. It is only by transforming cause and effect that one can master birth, aging, sickness, and death. It is because of transforming cause and effect that the Buddha possessed the full wisdom to know that eating that kind of mushroom would bring death. That is why he stopped the Sangha from eating it. Why did the Buddha not tell Kunda to throw away those foods containing poisonous mushrooms and not give them to anyone at all, including the Buddha himself? If he had simply said that, then the Buddha would truly have been one of wisdom and would have embodied the humanistic ethics of cause and effect, living without causing suffering to himself, to others, and to both. To practice as the Buddha did means to have mastered cause and effect and mastered illness and pain. As the passage above says, the Buddha was said to have been in pain almost to the point of death. Yet the Buddha repelled the suffering of illness from his body through the alert awareness and right mindfulness of the method of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. If he could master illness in that way, then could he not also have thrown away the food prepared with poisonous mushrooms? Practitioners who have not yet attained realization read this passage and are left with many doubts, but they do not know whom to ask. If they ask Mahayana teachers and Chinese Zen masters, those teachers say only, "not blind to cause and effect," just as Patriarch Baizhang taught in the story of Baizhang's wild fox. In short, this passage was composed and inserted by the patriarchs into the Mahaparinibbana Sutta of the original scriptures, in order to put forward the doctrine of fatalistic cause and effect as if it belonged to Mahayana Buddhism. But this doctrine of fatalistic cause and effect actually belongs to Indian Brahmanism and Chinese Zen Buddhism. Even if a practitioner attains realization, according to that view, one still cannot master cause and effect. One can only be not blind to cause and effect. Because they did not understand how wholesome states transform unwholesome states within the law of cause and effect, they imagined up this doctrine of fatalistic cause and effect, leading countless people into misunderstanding. Because they understood it that way, the patriarchs then composed and inserted the above passage in order to make the doctrine of fatalism appear clear. Yet without realizing it, they ended up slandering the Buddha. In short, the above passage was not spoken by the Buddha, but by later patriarchs. Therefore, it is completely contrary to the spirit of the Buddha's teaching. Please pay close attention and stay vigilant against such passages, which are often inserted into the original scriptures to undermine Buddhism. Excerpt from The Original Words of the Buddha's Teaching, Volume 4.